Hey folks, how's it going? My name's Matthew, aka EZBOT, and today I'm happy to introduce Octatrack Performance Mixer 3.0. So let me switch over to this camera here. This is the Octatrack Mark II, and I've been creating performance templates for the Octatrack, both Mark I and Mark II, for several years now. And over the last couple of years, they've been getting what I consider better, and better. And what's new in this performance template is that we now have noise risers and comb filter risers. And I've taken some of the workflows from my previous templates and brought them into a much more streamlined and what I think convenient workflow for the Octatrack. So what the performance template is it takes your existing Octatrack, and I've built 64 custom effects and a workflow for you that integrates the A/B input and the C and D inputs of your Octatrack, splitting them into two different audio buses. We have a melodic bus on the right side using the C and D input, and we have a drum bus on the left side using the A and B inputs. And each one of these inputs has a compressor on the beginning of the chain. So we compress the mix with a gentle compression coming into the Octatrack to even out all your sounds and to make things sound nice and crisp. I consider the compression to be a very gentle, high-end compression that kind of just makes the brights a little bit more present. It doesn't kill your low end at all. I think I found a pretty good sweet spot, so it's a very mild compression. Now, the way the Octatrack performance templates function is you take a drum machine, say like the Digitact, and a synthesizer, like the Syntact, like I have here, but you can incorporate any synthesizer or drum machine that you want. You either send the Octatrack clock or send from the Octatrack clock to the external devices. Every single bank and pattern on the Octatrack is populated with my performance templates, and you can switch through these different parts and visit different effects by pressing the parts button and selecting a different bank of effects. Each one of these parts has 16 different effects with some of the exact same effects or mildly different versions of effects in the same spots across your scenes on the Octatrack. That way you always know where to find the live looping scene, and you always know where to find the high pass, low pass filter. Every other one of the scenes is filled with a unique effect on a per part basis. And there are a ton of awesome effects. And we're gonna go through a lot of the effects. I'm gonna show off all 20 new effects in this performance template, talk about the workflow, and get pretty deep on how there's two different versions of this template as well. So I also want to talk a bit about how I made it, my thought process, why I use this, why so many people are using these performance templates that I've made. I see them in live shows all the time in the hardware scene, which is something that I'm very present in here in Seattle, Washington. I love the hardware scene, and people are using these templates all the time. I'm very happy to see that. Of course, I didn't design the Octatrack, but some of the effects that I've built in here have taken me a long time to craft, so I'm just happy to see people using them. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's hear some of the effects, and then we'll just keep going into the workflow and how it would work for you, how it could work for you. Mind you, this is all live, so not pre-edited. I'm gonna visit the chat probably after this presentation. I'll answer some questions and see what people are saying, respond to some comments. But right now I'm just gonna kind of go through this and let you hear all the effects, or a bunch of the new effects. We don't need to go through all 64 of them because there's a lot of effects. So I'm gonna start off with this like drum and bass track that I have. It's at 174 BPM. I'm currently using the Octatrack as the clock send master. So it's controlling these boxes. If I move to another pattern here, these machines move with that pattern, and I'm able to use my effects no matter what, because every bank and every pattern has the template pre-built and installed on every bank and pattern. So I've gone through and done that all for you, so you can just load the project up into your Octatrack and then make a copy of it, name it something else, and every single one of your patterns and banks will have the template in it. Now, something to keep in mind is that you don't have to use the Octatrack as a master clock. You could, in fact, just plug any box into it, plug MIDI into it. It's already set up for this too, so you don't have to change any settings, and just hit play on your Digitact or on another external drum machine, and all the effects will sync to the Octatrack, or all the effects will sync to the external clock source, including the looper. This is actually a really great workflow because you can do live looping on scene 16 and then change the tempo on your external box, and the loops will time stretch and you can crossfade back into a live performance. Now the template also ships in my current template for the Performance Mixer 3.0 ships with 2 different projects inside of it. There's a 4-bar effects loop process. The looper is still 8 bars on both of the templates, but 4 bars for the effects to completely go through their full transition. And there's an 8-bar version. Currently, we're looking at the 8-bar version of the template. So here's one of the staple effects. So this is the first effect that you find on the Octatrack, and it has a small noise riser in it as well. So this is a simple effect that modulates over 8 bars, fills it up with some reverb, high passes, and has a really gentle noise riser in the very beginning of it. This isn't one of the main noise riser effects. It just has that implemented kind of in the background. If we want to hear one of the more intense noise risers, let's bring in some of these elements with it too. Nice build up. Let's bring in some more elements with a big riser. You can start a riser halfway through it. Just let it keep going, it'll keep cycling the riser. So you kind of get the idea of what you can do here. The point of the performance template is to bring elements in and out of your music like you would in your projects on your computer. So if I wanted to start with no hats or no 303 and then bring that in, I could use these effects as transitions in between unmuting or muting sounds, or just adjusting a filter cutoff, but also moving from sound or from pattern to pattern within my projects. So let's go over to another song here. We'll do Bank 3, Pattern 1. Something a little bit more techno-inspired. And I can go to another part. Let's go to the build section. So here's a build up without a noise sweep in it. It builds up over 8 bars. Just doing all the work for you so you don't have to worry about your patience. Here's one of the risers from this section. 12 through 14 or through 15 are always going to be noise sweeps with some stereo effects that are affecting each one of your input buses separately. Let's check out part 3. Not bad. They sound great, and they work at any tempo all the time. This is the kind of stuff that you can do with this template. Huge build-ups, and if you want it to, it can be a huge drop. Some of them have comb filters applied to the noise sweeps. Do another build up here. What's up, Ura?
Then we can just have smoking
All right, let's try another build up. Let's go to the build section. Let's do build number 15 here. We're gonna start it at the beginning and then bring the 303 in. Here we go. Do another one. Let's like just open all these filters up. So this is just some of the new riser effects, but I've reworked all of the effects just to sound a little bit tighter. It's a lot of fun. It's really easy to use. You just drag the crossfader over and it does all the work for you. Here we go. If you want to get a little glitchy, we've got that too. And if you want to get really weird, we've got this. Tape stop with a filtered sweep noise rise. So lots of new effects, lots of new sounds to work with, huge buildups, huge drops that can be done with Performance Template, Performance Mixer 3.0. I've been playing with it so much, and I do a lot of live hardware electronic music shows myself, and I always use my performance templates at the shows because I wanted to have some dynamic effects, because you can't find good effects, or not very many good effects in hardware boxes. So the Octatrack has all the tools for you to build your own effects, and I've just put a lot of work into making that happen on the Octatrack over the last couple of years. So this is the culmination of several years of me working on different effects for the Octatrack. And this template is going to keep getting updated via my Patreon. So if you're on the Patreon, you'll always have this template to look forward to, new updates. I'll probably drop a new update to the template in the next week or so as I'm just going through and working some effects. But you're also able to pick this template up right now from coffee.com/EZBOT and get it in its current state, which is, I think, sounds great. It's totally ready to go, but it will be continued to get updated through the Patreon. So now I want to talk a little bit about how I've created these effects. How do they function on the Octatrack? Like, why am I able to do these effects, and what's the idea behind it? So what is happening here is that we have a through machine, and a through machine in the Octatrack brings audio into the Octatrack. The through machine has 3 or 2 neighbor tracks after the through machine, and neighbor tracks process the audio above it. So what's happening is I have 2 insert effects. The difference between an insert effect and a send effect is that an insert effect is in serial in the audio chain, and you can't move the effects around, but insert effects are, kind of, I want to say, like, they're exclusive to the track that they're on, right? That's how the Octatrack works. The Octatrack uses insert effects exclusively. It doesn't have send effects. It has send effect emulations with the reverb and the delay, kind of, but it doesn't actually have send effects. Digitac, Digatone, a lot of other devices, they all use send effects, so they have these shared effects. This doesn't, so I'm able to create all these specific use cases for a lot of effects. So the insert effect route is actually really great on the Octatrack. So we have a through machine going into a neighbor track, going into a neighbor track, giving us a total of 6 different effects in serial. And what I've done is I've used the scenes on the Octatrack to decide how much of each effect is used and whether I'm using the effect at all, and different adjustments to the effects. So I have things like beat repeats that start on track 1, and then they beat repeat or like freeze the audio, and it goes into, that buffer goes into a filter, into a delay, into a reverb, and after the filter and the delay is another effect like a chorus or something. So if I want to high pass and go into a chorus and then into a reverb, I can do that. If I want to high pass and go into a delay and then go into a distortion, I can do that. And that's the kind of stuff that the Octatrack is doing. And because I have both of these inputs split, I created 2 different buses on them. They each have their own beat repeats. So for instance, if you hold function and go down through your delay control, you get access to your delay control keyboard layout here. And on 9 and 13, you're able to freeze the audio manually for each input. So you can freeze your drum side or freeze your melodic side. Which actually sounds a lot cooler on like a drum and bass track. You can now freeze this. You can also record all of this live and crossfade over to a recording. So that's another one of the features. If you also want to do something like sidechain, we can do that.
Make sure you save often.
We can turn sidechain on by going to track 5, going to LFO, depth, and turn up the depth here on the first LFO. Turn it up to your liking, but this will sidechain by default 4 on the floor, all the audio coming into C and D. Nice smooth sidechain. It's great to just add to a mix. Like if something's building up, for instance, let's just get a lot of sounds going. I'm gonna sidechain this whole mix right here. We'll build up to it. So you can just add sidechain to the middle of your performance. It just makes a pattern last a lot longer, gives you more juice, and allows you to build up further. A lot of options here. I don't think I've really forgotten much at this point. I think adding the noise sweeps and the comb filters to the noise sweeps has really brought some energy that wasn't there in the previous templates that I made. I mean, they all had build-ups, but the build-ups were using delays and filters and ramp LFOs to open up filters and or closed filters so that we were able to build energy that way just through filtering. But now we actually have noise with LFOs on the noise, creating, using square waves, and so that we get like some, how would I even put that? Just adds a lot more energy to it using modulation on the noise itself. And plus the comb filter, you're able to have LFOs go to the pitch of the comb filter, so we could actually build, like the pitch will go up as well. There you go. That's the comb filter with the pitch going up on it. It's pretty much endless fun so far. Let's see here. So the effects from 1 to 8 are typically gonna not have noise sweeps on them. In the space section, the first one, which is mostly built for techno production or techno live performances, some of them do also have noise sweeps added to them. So just keep that in mind. But otherwise, pretty much all the other effects blocks don't have noise sweeps on 1 through 8. 9 and 10 are always going to be a high pass and a low pass filter, and then a third filter type, which would be like a smile pass filter or something like that, which would be a resonance peak at the high pass and the low pass filter cutoffs. And then scene 16 is always going to be your looper. So let me show you how to loop really quick. To get an 8-bar loop on the Octatrack, all you do is have your music play, select track 4 and hit rec 3. At the next 8-bar loop of your music, it'll begin its recording. So here we go. It's recording. Now hit rec 3 again. That'll tell the Octatrack to stop that recording after 8 bars. See it doing its thing here. Scene 16 is what we want to crossfade over to. We're now in the recorded loop. So I can take some elements out if I want. And we could fade back over. Really great for giving you some time to work on the machines or to move to a brand new pattern. It's really quite simple. You can go back over to it if you want. You can do some weird stuff at your live show, completely reverse your audio. That's so fun. There's lots of fun techniques for you to do, like using one effect for the first 4 bars, then switching over to another effect for another bar, and then switching to another effect for the last bar, or the last 2 bars, and using the end of a riser, or an end of a filter sweep, or using an echo freeze at the very end, for instance. This is a cool way to do things. This is the polybeat noise sweep. Here comes the noise sweep. Got a couple different echo freezes in here. Tape stop. There's so much potential for you to improvise your live hardware electronic music. And if you like the effects to turn around faster than an 8-bar turnaround, because right now you crossfade over at the beginning of an 8-bar pattern, I mean, I write my music in 8 bars. That's why I made the template in 8 bars. But if you write your music, or if you want your turnarounds to be faster, like a 4-bar turnaround, there is an alternate version of the template where all the effects reach their crescendos after 4 bars instead of 8 bars. So they're just much faster turnarounds, but they still have the same impact. But basically, every 4 bars, you could crossfade over and catch the beginning of the modulation loops on all the different crescendo type effects or build-ups or riser effects. And you'll always get that, I don't know, you're just always going to get more energy faster, just faster turnarounds for your energy. So far we've covered how the Octatrack functions. Track 4 is your stereo 8-bar looper. It's always set up to do 8-bar loops. If you know anything about the Octatrack and doing live looping or how to build a live remix scene and stuff like that, that's what I did here. And I have lots of tutorials on how you can build this kind of stuff from scratch. I have a tutorial on how you could build almost this exact template, not all the effects, but the concept behind it from scratch if you want to make this yourself. Or you can get it from my Patreon or from Coffee and skip building it yourself and just use the effects that I've made. But if you're interested in doing this stuff on your own, I've provided all the educational material for you to learn how to do it yourself. You don't have to rely on me. You can learn your Octatrack if you want. I also do private lessons if you would like to do this or learn how to do this or just learn how to use the Octatrack or any of this Electron gear. I provide that. So that's at EZBOT.live, and that's where you can sign up for private lessons. This template right here is definitely my favorite right now. I recently released another template called the External Remixer 1.2.2, which also was my favorite. It has a different concept. That one lets you do live remixing of your input bus on C and D side, so you can do live remixing and chopping of your audio right on the Octatrack, which utilizes the Octatrack's amazing sampling abilities and slice chopping abilities and randomization functions that it has for slices. It uses that in your live performance. It remixes your music instantly. So that one's really cool to check out too. This one is very simple. This is a very simple template. All you do is select track 4 and hit rec 3 to start recordings. Hit it again once the recording started to end the recording. And then you just choose effects and go to the effects. It's very basic in terms of how easy or how difficult it is to use. This is the easiest template to use. It just does all the work for you. So what's really great about that, and I don't mean that in a negative way that it does the work for you. What's great about the template doing the work for you is that it allows you to just crossfade over to an 8-bar effect, and you get 8 bars to go into your other machines and start preparing what's going to happen at the end of those 8 bars. That's the power of the performance templates, is that it's giving you the downtime and the energy that that would be hard to do without a performance mixer, so that when you move to your next pattern or the next part of your pattern, it has way more impact than it would had you not had these build-up effects or the filters and all of that. So all you really need to do is get yourself a drum machine and a synthesizer and plug it into your Octatrack and plug a MIDI cable in from the output or into your Octatrack and just get started. Like I said, there's a lot of effects, and I think I've covered most of the territory already very quickly because I have so many videos out on performance templates. But if there's any questions, I think I'll jump over to the chat now and we can answer some questions. How's it going, folks? You can also pick up these Performance Mixer, Octatrack Performance Mixer t-shirts if you want from modbang.com, which is my synth shop. Pegla, can we change this to work at 4 bars? The answer is yes. I actually already did it. It ships with the 8-bar and a 4-bar version and very detailed instructions on how the template works, all the effects, names of the effects, where they're located. This sticker, someone asked in the chat, the sticker on the Octatrack here, this sticker applies to many of the effects, but no, this is not. I do not have an Octatrack Performance Mixer 3.0 sticker for the Octatrack. I will, however, have one and a magnet available in the next coming weeks. And magnets, instead of stickers, well, I'm going to offer both, are coming for my Octatrack Performance templates. They'll be available at modbang.com. I have them on the way to my house right now for me to inspect how they turned out, and they did turn out really well. Thanks to Blake's, who's in the chat right now. He designed the sticker for the Octatrack performance templates, and then I had them manufactured. How does this work with minimal compositions, dubby stuff? Really, really well, Ura asks. It works extremely well with minimal and dubby sounds because there are a whole palette of effects for you to choose from. Some of them are really big into reverbs and delays. So if you want to have something that's just like creating a huge dubby buildup, that's in here. I mean, I think I got all the stuff in here. This template works really well for, I think exceptionally well for techno and drum and bass. I mean, it works well for all electronic music because it's synced effects, like it's just going to work. But for techno producers and drum and bass producers, you're going to have a really, really great time with this performance template, especially with the noise sweep riser effects that we have in the Octatrack now. So if you're a Dirty Wave M8 user, you could just plug your Dirty Wave M8 right into the Octatrack, and then plug your MIDI cable from your M8 into the Octatrack's MIDI input and just hit play on your M8, and you're going to have access to 64 effects plus live looping, 8-bar live looping on your M8 or any other device. But I think a lot of M8 users are making like jungle or drum and bass or breakcore. That stuff, I have the effects built for that because I like to work in higher tempos and high energy music. So I built a lot of effects that work really well with high energy music. Buy some stickers, yeah, for sure. Tonesmith, I'm also very impatiently awaiting the Octacosm release version. Octacosm is my next project, so I took a break from working on the Octacosm and I built the shallow water. I built an emulation of the shallow water on one of the parts on the Octacosm, and I'm deciding if I want to keep that and build this like quad effects pedal concept for the Octatrack to turn the Octatrack into a, super effects processor for making loops of audio for you to like grab from your Octatrack and bring over, or if you had two Octatracks would be really cool, but to just use it like an effects processor. So basically it'll become a microcosm, then it can become a shallow water, then it would become a big dub echo like multi-tap delay, or it could become a big modulated granular reverb, all that kind of stuff. I do have that currently in development. I took a break from working on that to finish this template because I really was feeling inspired by live shows lately. I've played a couple live shows in the last couple weeks, and I've been having so much fun playing live lately, just such a good time. And the one thing that I didn't hear from anybody at any of the performances of all the shows I played at was noise sweeps rising into the music. And this is something I used to do on the Syntact. I would use the utility noise device on the Syntact. On track 12, often, I would go into, I might even already have it set up here. Oh, I don't. But if you go into one of your tracks on the analog side, you can go into utility noise and you can set up a manual noise sweep. And I would just manually turn it up and then time it with some filters. And I was like, well, why don't I just automate this? So what I did is I took an 8-bar noise sweep. There's an alternate version. Also, I haven't mentioned this in this is all mentioned in the manual, but I haven't mentioned this yet. If you want to change the noise sweep, there's two options. You have a completely dry noise sweep that has less resonance, and then we have the noise sweep that we're listening to now for all the effects that has a more resonant noise sweep. And some of you might be asking, well, why don't we have 20 noise sweep choices? That's not how the Octatrack works. It's just not going to function that way. So you would have to lock in those noise sweeps on a per step basis. So the reason why we only get to use one noise sweep at a time per bank, per part is because the Octatrack it resets what that noise sweep is or what sample is playing via the sequencer. So if the sequencer isn't using the exact same settings on every part, the noise sweeps don't function correctly or they won't trigger at all. So the way I have it set up, it always works and they always sound good. So that'll just preemptively answering a question because people will always want to know about that. This is the template so far. Yes, I think so. Where does an updated solo template fall into prioritization? The updated solo template, so I actually, with this version here, I'm going to make a hybrid version that does sampling and has these effects and sums all the audio. Or I can make a version of it that has one free track for sampling and you lose some of the effects. And then I was thinking about the Octatrack Solo Template V2, which has less tracks for sampling, but more effects for your sample tracks on the Octatrack. Those are all like soonish on my radar. I'm kind of inspired to go back to the Octacosm and keep working on that project, although that's like much more of a mind puzzle than the other templates. The other ones I know how to do it. I could get it done. It just takes the time of sitting down and doing the work, because it's a lot of work to program all these effects on the Octatrack and to test them with different audio sources and to make sure the gain settings work with certain filter sweeps or with certain resonance values. Like I have to bring the volume down on the incoming audio with this resonance value because it's making it too loud. Like all the gain staging that goes into this is time consuming, and the solo template and the other performance templates, they all take a long time to get that stuff dialed in. Stuff like the Octacosm is all about just playing with my creative side, where I'm just like, what would happen if I did this? Be really cool if it kind of like went into this eerie soundscape and then the pitch of all the sounds went up an octave. Like that's the kind of stuff that I feel like working on right now. So that's definitely priority. And then after that, I'm going to revisit the solo template. I have a board behind me on the back of my wall, and it just has a list of like, do these things, like teach people how to mix on Electron boxes. Like that's on my priority list of like videos for people. And then there's OT solo template V2, that's right below it. So that's there, and it's like, I look at it every day. It's reminding me to keep working on this project. Albert says, I reckon this works best with the octaves clock transport. Actually, it really doesn't matter. In fact, I would dare to say that you're going to have more in a techno live production. I think, like, honestly, you get the most features out of the Octatrack performance templates if the Octatrack is receiving clock and not receiving transport. So in other words, it just sits on pattern 1 and you don't use any other banker pattern. You just sit on pattern 1, because that way, when you crossfade over to a live loop, you can switch projects on these machines if you want, or you can change tempos, and the Octatrack will respond to that and just time stretch the audio to that tempo. Because when you change patterns on here, it remembers what scene you were on last. So if you weren't on a live resample scene and you are going to a new pattern and you were hoping to have that live resample keep playing as you move to a new pattern, if you didn't have that in mind already before you did it, the Octatrack will switch to the scene that pattern was last on. So if you didn't have that prepared for yourself, you're just going to jump right into an effects scene in the next pattern. So when the Octatrack doesn't receive that clock or transport, it just sits on the effect that you want, and the Octatrack treats it more as an effects box. So that's honestly the best way to use it. The problem that we run into here is that there's MIDI jitter coming from these boxes. Now, there is a way to mitigate this. So MIDI-dronome and some of the other external analog clocks that you can buy for your devices, actually MIDI-dronome, when I plug it into the Octatrack, sends a stable, perfect clock into the Octatrack. The only problem is that MIDI-dronome and other clocking devices don't translate other boxes' MIDI jitter and like quantize the jitter. It just will send jittered MIDI as well. So the problem with MIDI jitter is that effects that use freeze delays, like beat repeat type effects, the minor jitter when a repeat is being re-triggered, it will sometimes create a little transient click or pop. And sometimes when the loop is cycling over and over, which you usually aren't sitting on an 8-bar loop longer than a couple of bars of that 8-bar loop, so it's not really an issue. I honestly don't think it's a problem. But the problem is that sometimes it can create a pop or click at the beginning just because of the MIDI jitter. Otherwise, I honestly do recommend that you maybe don't use this template as the clock master and that you send clock to it, because I think that you're going to have more fun taking advantage of the live looping and just knowing that the effect will sit there while you move from pattern to pattern to pattern. Teach me how to mix. My shit is so muddy. I'm going to make an extensive video on mixing on Electron. Honestly, there isn't that many options for how you can mix on the Electron boxes. You have the bass width filter, you have panning and volume, and then really it just comes to sound selection. But I'm going to talk about sound selection and how to get all that stuff right. A hybrid would be ideal. 1 or 2 sample tracks make the OT more independent. The hybrid will be coming with the riser effects, it'll probably just have 2 tracks in the hybrid version. Yeah, how to mix would be cool. I agree. I agree. Let's listen to some more sounds from the template. So I'm going to go over here. Get some sounds going here. So what you would do is like, we start building up, we might use like a acid delay here, like just to accentuate some sounds or add some variation, just randomly just. You can do stuff like this, do that, and then bring a new element in. Or take an element out. It works really well, stuff like that. There's no modulation on some of the effects. Some of them are you are the modulator. You're just running the crossfader. And sometimes we want to use a build-up. Turn this up a little bit. Let's use the build-up to get out of this into the next part of the pattern. Really great for transitioning from pattern to pattern, right? Now, if you want to check out the 4-bar version, we can do that. The only thing is that all the tempos are going to be reset because right now I have the Octatrack set as my master, and my projects assume the Octatrack is the master clock, so they'll all be at 120 as well because I programmed their tempos from the Octatrack. But we can check out the 8-bar version, or the 4-bar version, I'm sorry. So here it is, Performance Mixer 3.0 with a 4 on it, meaning 4 bars. And we'll mess around with this now. So every 4 bars, it goes through the crescendo. You can hear all the different kinds of riser effects that we have in here. As you can see, the turnaround time on the 4-bar part of the template is very fast. So just about every time you crossfade over, you're going to be in the middle of the riser or at the very beginning of that riser, and you can take advantage of that. So if your music is a bit faster and you want to have quicker turnarounds, use this template. If you're working in a techno live workflow where you're doing something like maybe like what Circo did, like who I had on stream recently, you might want to use the 8-bar template because you can just crossfade over and let the effect take an 8-bar crescendo, which is nice because for people like me who just want to like twist knobs and play with the crossfader all the time, when I just let it do its thing, it gives a very tasteful, full modulation that it doesn't feel too abrupt or doesn't feel too short. You know, like I give people the downtime that their ears need for them to build up some, you know, excitement for what's about to come. I think the 8-bar effects are ideal for techno, and the 4-bar might be more ideal for drum and bass, maybe. You know, it depends on your personal workflow or what you think sounds best, of course. Synthet, just check the manual and it turns out crossfade scene A-B is MIDI controllable via CC. Yes, it is controllable via CC. Can you explain to us how to properly set input and output volumes of all your devices to get the best sound with this template? All you have to do, so what I do for all, doesn't matter what template I'm using, just when I'm using the Octatrack in general, what I do is I put all of my volumes at 12 o'clock so that my lights on the Octatrack aren't ever really going into the orange that often. I boost my output volume post Octatrack. And that's just because I don't trust digital mixers that often. Even at the Octatrack, I don't care what machine it is. Like, I don't want digital clipping. So I always personally go moderately below what I think clipping could even achieve. And then I boost post with an analog mixer because it just provides better headroom. So that's my workflow. All you got to do is just make sure the lights don't go red. Otherwise, it'll be fine. You don't got to worry about that. Red, just keep it out of the red. It's okay if it gets into the orange. Just keep these little lights out of the red and you're good to go. There's nothing to worry about. The templates will all work just fine. Can you change parts and scenes with program change? I believe so. I actually haven't tried to change parts and scenes with program change. I do have a Chic template that you can download that should work with this template because all the effects are in the same place. So all the CC messages from the Chic template does work. And you can find that on my Patreon exclusively or with the Ultimate Effects template download on coffee.com/EZBOT. But there is a pre-built Chic template for the Chic controller if you want to use this. Yeah. Got to use the right gear where red is good. Yeah, sometimes red is good. Talk to Blake's about that. He likes playing in the red sometimes. His music gets real loud. It's got some of that user-friendly vibe. You prefer that method for PC? Yeah. So sometimes when you're playing, you might see a little exclamation mark pop up on the Octatrack. That means that the Octatrack is struggling to guess the BPM of a sample. And which makes sense because the sample is noise. So there's no beat in it for it to detect the beat. It's just a sweep of noise. So it's using the actual sample length and the BPM set in it for it to determine the BPM. And I'm using an 8-bar noise loop that, so I used a 200 BPM noise sweep, and then so anything above 200 BPM, typically, especially on the 8-bar version, will create a little exclamation mark. It actually doesn't mean anything. It won't change how it sounds. It won't do anything. It's just telling you the Octatrack is going, I can't figure out the BPM of this noise sample. And it doesn't matter because we don't need to know the BPM of the noise sample. It's just playing the noise sample. And it will play it correctly because it's time stretched correctly regardless to the exclamation mark that shows up. So that's just something to keep in mind. Stuff like this are great with those quick turnarounds because you can just like jump over to this at any time and go back over to your music. So this is what makes the 4-bar version really fun to play with. Doesn't matter what I do, it just works. The LFOs that I have on track 8, because the noise riser lives on track 8, which is, so how you change it would be like, I want to use the dry noise riser, you'd hit yes on that sample. You'd have to do that on every one of the parts. So it only takes a second to do, but you have to keep that in mind that you'd have to go part 2, change the sample, part 3, change the sample. You don't want to have different noise risers on different parts if you want the effect to work immediately every time. So it's just better practice to have them all be on the same sample, because the Octatrack does need to reset that sample via the trigger. So if it's set to the wrong sample, it won't play that sample at all. So you won't hear the noise riser. But the way that I have the LFOs set up is we have, on different parts, we have some ducking or exponential envelopes that are inverted, and they're synced to the trigger of the pattern. So sync trig on your pattern means that it's going to reset the LFO's phase at the beginning of each pattern, which is why it's keeping that ducking perfectly, because I have it set up so that it would duck 4 on the floor for some of the patterns, but in this current one it does, or for this current LFO setting. I also have a square wave that's going very quickly, also with sync trigger, and then I have another LFO that is going to the speed of the square wave, also set to sync trig. So what I do for some of the effects is I have the square wave moving very slowly at the beginning, and throughout the 4 bars and or 8 bars, it moves that square wave up faster and faster and faster till it's going very quickly. And that creates, a lot of tension in the music. And you can really feel that it's getting more excited as it speeds up the square wave modulation on the amp volume. There's lots of stuff like that. Some of the other effects have a ramp LFO adjusted to or set to the comb filter's pitch, so that it goes wah, and starts to cruise up. I am going to be going in and making adjustments, like I said at the beginning of the stream here, to all the effects in the template, and just mild adjustments here until I feel like it's absolutely perfect. And once it hits what I consider absolutely perfect, then it's done, and I start working on a new project. Kinga prefers the 4-bar because it's so much fun chaining effects into longer, harder drops. Great point. Kinga has been using the template for a very long time, many of the templates, so I would trust Kinga on this, that it's a lot of fun to do that. Oh, Circo, fine, you'll upgrade to this template. Yeah, you're like a you're like, what, 3-4 versions behind on yours? Yeah, please do. Please update to this template. I want everyone to update to this template and I also want everyone to report their thoughts, and as long as they're not, don't be a jerk to me on the internet, because I'm a human being, but report your thoughts on the template. You could do it on this video if you want in the comment section. It's not as cool, but you can. I'm not opposed to it entirely, but you can report them to my Patreon, to coffee.com, in my Discord, which there'll be a link to in the comments section after this. And you can also report them to ezbot84@gmail.com. So you could send emails to me directly about the template if you find a bug, or you think like this noise sweep is too quiet, or this effect is too loud, or any of that stuff. I'd love to hear that so that I can perfect this, because I want it to be just work for everybody's music all the time. That's the idea. I want people to be able to pick up a used Octatrack, throw my template on it, not have to know the Octatrack at all, and just use these effects. And not that I don't want people to learn the Octatrack, because I had to learn it deeply to be able to do this, but it doesn't mean you have to do it too. You don't have to do that. I want to enable people to have fun and play music and go out and play shows and feel like they're having a great time. I think having stuff like this makes you have a much better time at a live show. So I'm all for people just getting the template and not even learning the Octatrack. Doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I want you to. But I also think it's great to learn how these things work so that you can make adjustments and update the Octatrack yourself, or update these templates to work specifically for your music. And that's going to require you to learn a lot about the Octatrack to make adjustments to these templates, because it's quite a bit of work to do that. Oh, thanks, Circo. Thank you, SynthDad. Thank you for all your work and also for explaining. Yeah, no problem. I may even make another more formal video than this one, because I know that this is like, what, an hour long so far, and I'm probably all over the place because I'm just thinking, I'm just sharing my thoughts live and trying to showcase this to the best of my ability without video edits and stuff like that. So maybe that'll happen in the future. Definitely on my Patreon, you can expect me to answer questions very quickly on the Patreon posts. I'm always checking my Patreon all the time. And in the Discord, you can expect me to answer very quickly there, especially if you ping me in one of the forum channels that is about this template. I will show up quite quickly and answer questions, and you can give me tips or ideas, new ideas, because none of this is final. This is, I mean, it's ready to go, but I'm always open to new ideas and new effects concepts. If you have something you're like, man, it would be so cool if it had this, tell me what it is. Let's see if we can do it. I really would love the challenge, and helps me learn, and I'm open to learn. That's what I want to do. I want to just learn as much as I possibly can while I'm on this godforsaken planet. Can confirm Matt is super fast. Thanks, Synthad. You also caught me like preparing for the stream where you were commenting, and I was just right there yesterday. Next step is selling Biddy Pack. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna sell a pack of what would 2,000 chord progressions or something. A bunch of arpeggiators. No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. No, I'm excited that people are excited about the template, and I definitely want to get this in as many people's hands as possible. Like I said, it's available on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. Check it out. Comes with 2 versions, an 8-bar and a 4-bar version. There is a lot for you to play with. I don't think there's much more tutorial stuff that I need to go over, and I don't want to make this stream too long. We're not going to do any music production today. I'm just presenting this so you can see that this is out, and then I'm hoping that the people on my Patreon will download it, use it, and people that are not on the Patreon will join the Patreon, check out the template, or go to Ko-fi.com and download the template and know that there's a reference on what is actually happening here, and get an idea of how to use it. But it's really self-explanatory. You just plug your cables into the back of the machine. As far as actually installing the template on your Octatrack, it is an Octatrack project. So if you understand that concept or how to move or load projects onto the Octatrack, that's all this is. You download the project file, there's instructions there, extract the zip file, open the folder, take the project file, drag it into your set where all your other projects are on your Octatrack. Typically, on an Octatrack Mark II, your set would be called Presets Mark II unless you've created a new set. If you've created a new set, drag one of the project files, either the 4-bar or the 8-bar version, onto your Octatrack and go from there. I recommend you just drag them both so that you can try them both out and see how they function. Oh, thank you, Ethan. He started an Octa revolution. I'm also currently working on, in collaboration with Femto or Aota or Jordan, however you know this person, we have been working, Jordan's been working exceptionally hard on coding a Max for Live device, which is almost completely finished. But we are working on the performance template for the Push 3. So this template with completely updated Ableton 12 effects will be coming out on the Push 3, hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months. It's definitely still a ways out, but it's very close to having the Max for Live device completed that will allow us to do exactly what I wanted to do. And I'm not going to spoil it and tell you all the cool stuff that it's able to do, but it's not anything that the Push 3 can do currently. And it's not anything you've ever seen on a Push device. So it is going to be a complete Push 3 or Push 2 user. Maybe it'll work on the Push 2, I'm not sure, but it'll be a complete game changer for that device, especially for the standalone users. So of course, you'll have all of the Push's functionality with all of the effects that I could build in Ableton, which is a lot more effects than I can build on an Octatrack with higher fidelity. So look forward to that in the next 3 to 6 months. That'll be something that you'll find at modbang.com. Yeah, so I think I'm going to let everybody go at this point. This is Octatrack Performance Mixer 3.0. I'm very excited to have it released. probably see an update to it maybe even this evening. If people start downloading it right now and reporting any sort of bugs that they find, I will immediately be working on that and updating it. And for people who buy it at coffee.com, it's a one-time download. So when I do an update, it wants you to pay for it again, and that is why the Patreon is another option for that. However, for folks who buy this template from coffee.com in the first week or so while I'm developing it, I will just be sending out emails to folks who purchase it with the updates that I do for free. So for the first week that I'm developing this, you'll just get a free update. You don't got to worry about that. So if you want to do the one-time purchase and not join the Patreon, that's totally going to work for you, and you're still going to get the updated versions if there's any sort of bugs in the template. But you can also just join the Patreon and have access to all the templates and all that. I also do a thing called Soundcheck, which happens every Sunday at 10 o'clock on my Patreon. It's a tier that you can join where I meet up every week and talk about live hardware, and we do debugging, and we talk about workflow, and I explain how the templates work and do all that. That's a Patreon thing that's available, and I will be going over Performance Mixer 3.0 in that hour-long session that happens weekly as well. So if you want to ask questions or get a little deeper one-on-one with me, not one-on-one, but in a group setting, in a smaller group setting, that's an option for you as well. Now we need to buy push. Well, eventually, maybe. Right now, the best time is to play with the Octatrack. Yes, EZBOT and Femto. Will work on all pushes? I don't know. You tell me, Femto. Missed the stash? I was just feeling like I looked a little old. It's my 40th birthday next month, and I was just like not feeling ready to hit 40, so I was like getting rid of that so I could keep a little bit of the youth look. I don't want my time on this planet to be so short. I want more time here. There's so much to learn. There's so much to see. I think about that too often. Okay, anyway, without getting completely existential at the end of the stream, thank everybody for showing up. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments on this YouTube live stream. Leave them in the comments on my Discord or the Patreon or on coffee.com. You can also leave comments there too. So if you have questions or concerns about anything or just want to know how things function, I'll answer those questions, to the best of my ability in a very short manner. I'm not gonna respond in paragraphs and stuff like that. I'll respond with a sentence. So don't expect too much from me. It's going to be a very streamlined response, but if you do have questions, I'm going to answer them very quickly. But thank you all for the support, and I appreciate everybody. Check out the template. Download it. Have a good time.